Welcome back into the Bangtan universe wormhole, where we're about to discuss a topic that might be slightly controversial. Many BU theorists have tried to classify our BU heroes using the traditional four elements of earth, air, wind, and fire. This idea seems to be backed up by the fact that the symbols for the four elements appear on the background of the On MV here. But it's not easy to match up 7 characters with 4 elements, especially when only 2 of the 7, Yoongi and Jimin, really fit those elements. But there's an alternative, an ancient Chinese theory with 7 elements that do match our 7 heroes perfectly. Before we tell you about it, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you won't miss out on our newest content. Now let's get started. Yin-Yang and Wuxing are Taoist concepts that originate in ancient China. Unlike the Western Four Elements theory, Yin-Yang and Wuxing are based on the idea that the universe is constantly changing. Life, history, and even inanimate objects are all connected, and they interact with each other in repeating cycles. That already sounds a lot like the BU storyline, doesn't it? All those repeating time loops and butterfly effects, and we're just getting started. Many Westerners are familiar with the Yin-Yang symbol, but they may not have a perfect understanding of it, so let me give you a quick explanation. Yin, represented by the areas in black, is retracting, passive, and contractive, while Yang, represented by the areas in white, is repelling, active, and expansive. But these two states don't represent good and bad or superior and inferior. They just represent opposites, like sunlight on one side of a hill while the other side of the hill is in shadow. The light side and shadow side switch as the day goes on. It's the same with yin and yang. They just represent different states that switch places over time, and each of those states contains a little bit of the other. The term Wuxing, which translates as moving stars, originally referred to the 5 visible planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. However, some sources I found say that the concept of Wuxing comes from the 4 cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west, with the 5th element being the center. But the important thing to remember is that Wuxing presents 5 phases of existence, which are meant to explain how the universe works. Some of those phases have the same names as the 4 elements of the Western system, but don't be confused. The Wuxing elements aren't literal elements, they're concepts. In fact, if you want a good explanation of the system, I recommend the recent Korean horror movie Exhuma. Although Yin-Yang Wuxing began in China, it's become popular in Korea too, and its concepts are the backbone of Exhuma's plot. But since the movie isn't the subject of this video, I won't say anything more about that. Instead, I'll go on to tell you about the 5 elements of Wuxing. We'll begin with Earth. As a reminder, the Wuxing elements are literal, in the sense that Earth is really dirt and rocks. In Wuxing, Earth means the essence of Earth, which can be contained in people, things, and even historical events. That essence is supportive and stabilizing. It brings equilibrium. Remember that I said the 5 elements of Wuxing represent the 4 cardinal directions plus the center? Well, Earth is that center. And one of the BU characters is associated with the qualities of the Earth Wuxing element. Can you guess which character that is? If not, don't worry, I'll match everybody up with their elements, Wuxing and Yin-Yang, as soon as I finish explaining it all. Now let's talk about metal. A person characterized by metal is self-reliant and resilient, and they prefer to handle their problems alone. They're also intelligent, business-oriented, and good at organization. But the most interesting thing about people characterized by metal is that they can use their essential nature to galvanize others in the same way that metal's essential nature allows it to conduct electricity to other elements. Oh, and by the way, in Wuxing, the element of metal is usually represented by gold and silver. It can really be any metal, but gold and silver are the most common, and those will become important in the next one-verse video, so keep that in mind. Our next element is fire. You can probably already guess which BU character is fire, and my description will only confirm your guess. When a fire personality is properly balanced, like Yin and Yang are balanced, that person demonstrates warmth, connection, enthusiasm, peace, and creativity. But if their fire essence isn't balanced, they can become emotionally cold or hot-tempered, and they demonstrate impatience, impulsiveness, and hate. Next comes wood, which can also be translated as tree. Wood personalities are strong and flexible, just like bamboo is strong and flexible. A person characterized by this element is outgoing, courageous, and socially conscious, as long as their element is balanced. But if they feel like they're being held back or misunderstood, they can become frustrated and angry. Now, can you think of an actual BTS member who fits this description? He seems to have put a lot of himself into his BU character. Finally, there's the Wuxing element of water. Because water is fluid, it can either be weak like a trickling stream or powerful like a flood, or anything in between. A person characterized by water is wise, intelligent, flexible, and courageous, as long as their element is balanced. But if they're out of balance, they might have difficulty in choosing something and sticking to it. They might also be paralyzed by fear. Our Earth character is Jungkook. If you've seen his profile video in our 7 series, you know that he's the secret center of the entire BU. But he's also always overlooked, and that explains why, even at the end of the Map of the Soul era, when everybody else has their elements in balance, Jungkook continues to struggle. Here's a diagram showing how a balanced Earth personality differs from an unbalanced Earth personality. Jungkook's character ticks every box on the unbalanced side of this diagram. Our metal character is Hosuk. When his element is balanced, he's the mood maker and secret linchpin of the group. But that's precisely why the cat targeted him in Notes 2. It tried to drive him into complete despair because Hosuk's state of mind has a huge influence on his friends. Our fire character, of course, is Yoongi. His element didn't come into balance until the end of the Love Yourself era. So in the HYYH and Wings eras, he kept shifting between warmth and coldness toward the people he cared about, and he had a love-hate relationship with music. In the Love Yourself era, he finally made peace with himself during a literal mountaintop experience described in Notes 1. Then, when his mountaintop experience was undone and the loop reset, he made peace with himself in a different way in the Map of the Soul era. Our wood character is Namjoon, who's a lot more courageous and socially conscious in real life than he is in the BU, but he does get frustrated and angry when he's being held back. In the BU, his character's wood element is often out of balance. For instance, remember his angry outburst at the gas station, the one that led him to punch out a customer and get thrown in jail? Even after Seokjin saved him, Namjoon only made slow growth toward balance. He didn't really reach it until the Map of the Soul era, when he helped Taeyoung investigate his dreams. Our water character, as you've probably figured out, is Jimin. His element was badly out of balance beginning in early childhood and going on through his extended stay in the hospital. Like Jungkook, Jimin ticked every box in the unbalanced side of his diagram. He was pessimistic, frightened, paralyzed, doubtful, and avoidant, and those things kept him in the hospital. But at the end of the Notes Book 2, Jimin took action and found serenity by returning to the Arboretum and facing his fear. So now we've matched 5 members with the 5 elements of Wuxing, and what's left? We've got Seokjin and Taeyoung, but we don't have any more elements. The answer is that we can use Yin and Yang. They're appropriately central concepts for 2 central characters. Seokjin represents Yin, the passive, contracting aspect of change. We see him several times in the Save Me webtoon and in different MVs, hiding away in his room with the curtains closed and he's curled up on his bed in a fetal position. This is the recessive, contracting essence of Yin coming out. But to be fair, most of us would probably do just what Seokjin does if we were in his position. And we have to give him credit for getting out of bed and out of his room once he's had time to recover his balance. The force that gets him moving comes from the bit of Yang that's always inside a Yin personality. But Seokjin is very much a Yin character. He's just being forced to act against his nature. The same is true of Taeyoung, the Yang character. Yang is characterized by action, and Taeyang doesn't get the chance to take positive action until the map of the Soul Era, when his worry over Seokjin combines with the support from Namjoon to break him out of his paralysis and self-doubt. Then everything flips for him, and he gets to express his true nature. Of course, everything flips for Seokjin in that era too, but in his case it's not a good thing. He's passive and retractive in Notes 2 because he's under the spell of the cat, and he isn't doing what he should. Maybe it's just Seokjin's fate to have to act against his nature. If that's the case, he'll have to rely on the bit of yang within his yin to support him. And of course, he has all his friends. Now here's the first of 3 Easter eggs I'll be sharing in this video. You can see from the diagrams I've used that each element is associated with a certain color. Earth is yellow, metal is gray, fire is red, wood is green, and water is blue. Now take a look at this slide, which I used in the videos for Seokjin's father and his friends and the Che conundrum. Notice anything? At the beginning of this video, I said that Wuxing gets its name from the 5 visible planets. Now I'll add that each Wuxing element is associated with one of those planets, and Yin and Yang are associated with 2 other celestial bodies. But the fascinating thing about these connections is that in the West, the planets are named after Roman gods, but the characteristics of those Roman gods still match up with the Wuxing elements assigned to our BU characters. Let me explain. In Wuxing, the element of Earth, which we've assigned to Jungkook, is represented by the planet Saturn. The mythological Saturn was a titan responsible for both generation and dissolution, placing him right in the middle of the Yin-Yang cycle, just like Jungkook. Saturn is also associated with time, which is a major theme of the BU overall, and Jungkook himself is frequently seen posing with clocks. Meanwhile, Hosek's element, metal, is represented by the planet Venus. You probably associate Venus with love and beauty, but she has another responsibility which better fits the BU. Venus is a goddess of fields and flowers, and Hosek has a flower pot that gets way more attention than it ought to. This is an unexplored topic right now. Maybe no one else has even noticed it, but just wait a couple of weeks and you'll see why we think it matters. In the meantime, let's look at Venus's Greek counterpart, Aphrodite. She is often referred to as smile-loving Aphrodite, and that's a perfect epithet for J-Hope. Moving on, Wuxing associates Jungi's element, fire, with the planet Mars. Mars is the Roman god of war, and you know how combative Jungi can be when his element is out of balance. Then there's Ares, the Greek counterpart of Mars. Ares was especially noted for being savage, and that is one of Suga's most common epithets. You can't plan this stuff, you can only laugh when you discover it. Next we have Namjoon's element, wood. Wuxing associates wood with the planet Jupiter, which was named after the king of the Roman gods. That's certainly fitting for the leader of BTS, but here's what's important for his BU character. Jupiter was wise but quick to anger, and he had the ability to determine people's fates. Just like time, fate is a key theme of the BU. Jimin's element, water, is associated with the planet Mercury. The god Mercury is known as the Swift Messenger, and in the Notes Book 2, Jimin becomes a swift messenger to Yoongi when something prompts him to rush to Yoongi's workroom and tell him about Seokjin right away. That allows Yoongi to respond in a way that saves Seokjin from the cat. Mercury is also the god of communication, and Jimin handled all the computer research in Notes 2, so that makes perfect sense. Finally, Mercury is the god of roads and crossroads, 2 more major themes of the BU which we'll explore in a later video, so just keep that idea in mind. As for Yin and Yang, they're associated with the moon and sun, respectively. Since Seokjin is Yin, he's associated with the moon, and it connects to several goddesses who fit his BU storyline. There's the Titan Selene, who's the sister of Helios, the sun god. That fits with Yang and Taeyang, who are associated with the sun, but we'll get to him in a minute. Getting back to moon goddesses, we also have Hecate, who's associated with magic, doorways, and in-between places. Think about film out. Finally, and rather tragically, the moon in the BU is usually associated with the cat. Now let's talk about Taeyang's symbol Yang, which is associated with the sun. The titan of the sun, as I said, was Helios, and he's usually depicted wearing a crown that looks like this. Does it look familiar? Helios was overthrown by Apollo, the god of way too many things for me to mention here, but a few of them do relate to Taeyang in the BU, and those are music, healing, dreams, and prophecy. Now remember what I said about Seokjin's yin symbol, the moon, being associated with the cat. What do you think the sun is associated with? I can't tell you because I don't know if you've seen the video, What is the Voice That Spoke to Seokjin? If you have, you should be able to figure it out. Google it if you have to. Now here's your second Easter egg, which relates to the celestial bodies involved with Wuxing. Here, take a good long look at our channel logo. What do you see? Wuxing Theory is too complex to cover in one short video, and I'm no expert anyway, so I'll wrap up this one verse with a final very important chapter. Again, as a reminder, the whole Yin-Yang Wuxing Theory is based on cycles of repetition. Well, Wuxing lays out the specifics of several different cycles, which are intended to show what happens when different elements interact. I'll only explain 2 cycles here, and I'll keep the explanations very short. You don't need to know much to see how they accurately predict interactions in the BU. First, we have the generating or constructive cycle. Wood generates fire when twigs rub together. Fire creates earth from volcanic magma and ash. Earth produces metal in the form of minerals. Metal causes water to condense on its cold surface, and water nourishes wood, meaning plants in general. Now here's the overcoming or destructive cycle. Wood uses its roots to break up earth. Earth dams or soaks up water. Water quenches fire. Fire melts metal, and metal chops wood. Now, the BU doesn't present a full creative or destructive cycle among the characters, but that's not surprising. The storyline is complicated enough without the writers trying to fit it into such a specific, strict format. But they did give us many cases in the BU where characters interact in ways that correlate directly with their Wuxing elements. Let's start with 2 cases of creative cycles at work. Fire creates earth, and Yoongi creates Jungkook in the sense that he gives Jungkook a reason to keep living. Meanwhile, metal creates water by causing it to condense, and Hosek condenses Jimin, focusing him and giving him the courage to leave the hospital. Remember, his element tends to get out of focus when it's unbalanced. Now, in the destructive cycle, wood crumbles earth, and in both Blood, Sweat, and Tears MVs, Namjoon is a terrible influence on Jungkook. These same 2 MVs show us another destructive sequence when Jimin's water quenches Yoongi's fire. Yoongi should be courageous and action-oriented, but around Jimin he's reduced to being a fearful protector who only wants to shield Jimin, not help him to grow. Again, there are other cycles, and you can look them all up and find out a lot more about Wuxing and Yin-Yang if you just Google either Yin-Yang Wuxing or Wuxing cycles, or both. And now it's time to wrap everything up. Let's get back to the scene from On, the one where we saw the traditional symbols for earth, air, fire, and water on a wall behind Yoongi. Now that we know the 4-element system isn't the key to understanding the BU, we have to wonder why those symbols are even there. Q and I don't have a solid answer to this question, but I'm willing to take a stab at it. The On MV tells a symbolic story about all of human history, beginning with someone being cast out of Eden and ending with an apocalypse, before a new creation begins. In other words, the On video gives us a full yin-yang cycle from beginning to end, and then starts a new cycle. And look carefully, this new cycle seems to begin with a more inclusive version of Eden, judging by the kinds of people that are entering. What's more, the new cycle begins with the words "No More Dream," which is the title of BTS's first video, but "no" and "more" are quickly erased to reveal a new model that's the opposite of the old one. Instead of "No More Dream," we have "Dream." And even the song title "On" is a reversal of another early BTS song, No. So putting everything together, it looks like BTS meant for the Map of the Soul album, and the On video in particular, to signal the start of Chapter 2 for them. Of course, the pandemic put everything out of whack, but we won't get into that here. Instead, let's think about the cycle of Chapter 1, and how it changed over the course of time. BTS started as nobodies but became superstars, and at the same time, K-pop started as a very niche interest, but it became a worldwide phenomenon, in large part due to BTS. When you look at the ONMV from that perspective, it makes sense for a structure decorated with symbols from the Western four-element theory to be destroyed in the apocalypse. A similar structure in the next chapter might have symbols that fit the Yin-Yang Wuxing Theory. Or, well, that's my guess. Like I said, I'm not sure. I'm just taking a stab at it. Now here's your final Easter egg. I actually meant to share this one at the end of a previous video, What is the Voice That Spoke to Suk Jin? But I just forgot. So I'm giving it to you now, but you won't understand it unless you've seen that other video. If you have, then turn up your speakers and listen to our channel intro.